I bet they didn't realize. I bet they think if they do this, we can just find the money.
I'll probably,
Which we
I start traveling again next week,
we could,
so
right?
I'll
That's true. We
I'll
could.
make sure that they're on my calendar, but if I'm not in the air, then
What did Wayne say about it?
I don't think Wayne's interested.
yeah.
That's what I would have
Once we get the
suspected.
feasibility with Cummings out of the way, we'll figure out what we're gonna do. Then we'll start doing public inspection. Because I think once we do the feasibility of this part.
We good? We're good. Okay. Let the chief go take his leave. We're gonna get started. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. We will get started as usual by reviewing and signing payroll and accounts payable. For the period ending 1/6/24, we had payroll in the amount of $32,323.02 and accounts payable in the amount of $27,323.24. We did not have any school or NHRS payments.
Is Russ not dialing in?
Russ is not available tonight. He's on a trip.
Accounts payable, 27.
Well, it's actually AP from that is payables that's left from December. And this is the new payables in January.
Signing under Russ's name.
That's okay. And Paul, if you hadn't had a chance to sign the rec, you can give that over too.
Thank you.
All right,
All right,
all set?
I am.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Included in tonight's consent agenda are public minutes from 1/2/24, the rec manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permits. Next, we will move over to public comment. As usual, anyone from the public is welcome to comment on an agenda item or any other topic of their choosing. If you would please come up either to the table or sit right next to Paul. You can be picked up by the microphone. It looks like we have a taker already. Come on up. Please remember to state your name and address at the start.
Hello, I'm Robert Spann, 31 Peabody Drive. And I just wanted to give the board an update on the Pickpocket Dam situation, at least from my perspective. There have been a few developments, nothing major yet. I think the big news is that the town of Exeter has announced that the final feasibility study from their engineering firm, VHB, will be completed sometime in February. And they've announced that there will be a public meeting in Exeter on February 27 at the town hall, not the town offices, but across the street, because I think they expect a crowd. They were asked, the select board was asked whether notice would be given to river abutters. And they said that they will notify river abutters in Exeter, but that they don't have the information on abutters in Brentwood. So Russ Dean has said that he will contact Karen about this, give you notice of the meeting, and ask that the town of Brentwood notify river abutters. Of course, there's a lot of the property that abuts the river is conservation land, so that's another aspect of this. I don't know whether from what I can tell from the preliminary reports, the drawdown of the river, if they remove the Pickpocket Dam, will affect the river flow all the way up to Hague Road, is what they're saying. If that's the case, I think that the Little River will also be affected. No one's mentioned Little River yet, but it flows into the Exeter River below Hague Road. So I assume that it'll be affected, but I don't know that. So there may be an issue of whether abutters on the Little River should be notified. There's been a group of, a citizens group formed called Friends of the Exeter River, which has met several times. It has residents of both Exeter and Brentwood in it, and they've expressed concern on a couple of occasions to the Exeter Selectboard about the process by which this decision was reached. And that group will continue to meet and work on this issue. It's mainly an issue of, there are a lot of Exeter residents who are upset because they were never notified about this, and they are river abutters and will be affected. I should mention that, and I'm trying not to editorialize here, but the town, at least two members of the Exeter Select Board are now taking the position that there has been no decision made to remove the dam, and that their vote in October was only to apply for a grant, and that there will be a process of public hearings and analyses and so forth before any final decision is made to remove the dam, and it might even require a vote of the citizens of Exeter. That position, while technically correct, is totally at odds with what they said, the Select Board said in their letter to NOAA in support of the grant, where they said the Select Board unanimously supports removing the dam. So they're walking that back now, but they're on record, and the minutes are clear that they voted unanimously to remove the dam. But you'll probably hear that from them. I don't know, did if I may ask, did Russ Dean ever respond to your letter, Karen?
He has not, no.
Yeah. I've seen no evidence in watching the Select Board minutes and meetings that letter from the town of Brentwood has even been communicated to the Select Board, but I don't know one way or the other. So that's my
Thank you
report.
for those updates.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And I saw in our notes here, Karen, that New Hampshire DES had confirmed with us that same information, that the report is likely to be completed. Soon?
Yes, and so he said around that time, he thinks that the town of Exeter would make it available on the website, but once they have received it, then it becomes public information, and he'd be happy to forward it to me at that time.
Gotcha.
Oh, and yes, last night at the Exeter Select Board meeting, they said that they would post the report by February 20 on their website.
Okay.
We had asked that it be made public before the February 27 meeting, so we'd have a chance to review it, and evidently that will happen.
Okay. Thank you.
While we're on this topic, I was gonna say this during the economic development updates, but can we, it's a request of the Economic Development Committee to ask our town council if there is any potential for the town of Brentwood to have standing in this issue due to the fact that we own conservation land abutting the river.
Do we own it, or do we own easements?
I think both.
Both?
Yes.
Yes.
But I thought we already asked that question, is said.
We asked the DES Dam Bureau, but we did not ask our own town council. But I don't think we asked that specific question. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else interested in public comment? Come on up.
It's a river drive.
Welcome.
Deborah LaRoche, 56 Crawley Falls Road in Brentwood, coming before you to see if there's been an update, if the cease and desist has been served legally to
Yeah.
the
hasn't been-
property on Route 125.
Right, so that was gonna be addressed at tonight's meeting.
Oh, it is? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did not see the minutes, but it is going to be.
That's my understanding. Or
Okay.
at least I was gonna raise it as part of committee
your-
updates.
Of your planning board updates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard that the planning board had voted on it. I haven't drafted it, and nor did I get a chance to meet with Glenn today to see what the terms were and what the board was looking to see to have it issued.
I mean, I could talk about it now or talk about it during committee updates.
It sounds like it probably won't be ready for a vote tonight, but we can certainly talk about it and get the preparatory work done. And probably next week we would discuss it.
So I can stay and listen?
Sure,
Of course. Of course you
Always.
can.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry, so I'm happy to explain it and, then we can vote on it.
Sure.
But again, I don't wanna be out of order, so.
Yep. Sounds good.
Yeah, everything's in the minutes.
Other public comments? Come on up.
Oh, yes, that's undeniable.
Jillian was still working on the minutes today.
What?
Jillian was still working on the minutes today.
Doug Finnan, One Gov Road. Just an update on Rockingham Planning Commission, RPC. There will be no meeting tomorrow evening as scheduled in Exeter at the Unitel building. It's been postponed. There is not a date as of yet, but we were having an energy forum. And anybody who was interested in going, please don't go tomorrow night. They won't be there.
Was that the one about the grant funding
Yes.
availability? Okay.
A number of different things.
I think
topics,
Letty
but just-
Bedard was gonna go on behalf of the school.
Yeah, and I reached out to Jillian to see if she'd just send out a blast to
Okay.
let everybody know.
Okay.
But I'll make sure that there's a follow-up so she knows too. And Russ, he's not here. I
She's
just
out of
wanted-
town, yeah.
For a couple of days.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so he may not have decided to go, but that's it.
Okay, thank you. Other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment at 6:13 and move on to discussion action items. The first one is Lieutenant Doty, who is going to talk to us about an MTD grant. Come on up.
As always, thank you. Happy New Year, because I don't think I've seen most of you
Yeah.
since that. For those you don't know me, I'm Justin, I'm the lieutenant here, so thanks for listening, as always. So the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety put out grants for mobile data terminals, or MDTs, which are in-car computers. I did apply to, it's a 75-25 match, so they pay 75% of it. I did apply to cover 6 MDTs for our frontline cars. These have to go in cars that are at least 50% patrol, so those 6 cars would be 5 frontline cars, especially the car we added, and the supervisor vehicle. So the total cost, or I should add to, the state won't cover install, so I will explain that as I explain the cost. So the total all-in cost will be $29,160. The state is going to cover $19,845 of that. And our 25% match would be $6,615. However, with the install, again, that the state doesn't cover, it'd be $9,315 that would be for us to cover. So my request, on top of accepting these grant funds, would be to use money from the capital reserve for IT hardware fund to cover that $9,315, which would cover, again, our match as well as the install price.
And that has 59,000.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, sorry. So a lot of reasons why we can utilize these MDTs. One are our current MDTs, they're just aging. We have a tablet-based product right now, so the keyboard's not attached to it. So one of them you can't even update past Windows 7, so I'm sure the other ones aren't far behind not being able to be updated. In addition to that, as the county progresses, we're kind of at their mercy here as they update our records management system to Pro Suite. You need a computer or an MDT that has at least a 14-inch screen for the product to actually function correctly, and currently none of the tablets that are in the cars have that 14-inch screen, so it would just completely distort the entire product. And after talking to Corporal Spitaleri, who's been sitting on the committee for the Pro Suite, we've kind of gotten a lot of the inside details on it. So that would be the biggest reason.
One of the things, just to add to that, I did ask about the computers that we had, because I went to the initial meeting last year. And at the time, they said, well, what you have might work, might not be optimal. They couldn't give any definitive answer if our smaller screens would even work. So the reason that we're trying to be proactive and not get stuck, where we need to come and plan to and ask for $30,000 because we missed a grant.
Another great reason is this grant is normally 50-50. For some
Oh,
reason,
yeah.
this year it's 75-25. So,
Nice.
And I actually owe Andy a lot of thanks because he threw the grant towards me, so thank you, Andy.
And can I clarify, did we
Yep.
already have a partial grant and this is an expansion of a grant? Because I see here it's 8,000 up to 28,000.
So that would have to do with I believe the grant-funded patrols that we do that are also through the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety. So like the
Okay.
DUI grants and speed grants, click it or ticket, all that
Okay.
stuff.
It just increases the total amount.
Yep.
So what would happen with the other tablets?
So we'll see, some of them might get recycled into car 3, which is the other unmarked Taurus. Otherwise, we're gonna look to try and see if we can sell them or find a use for them.
I mean, is it the kind of thing that we could donate to a school or kids, or I don't know if they need to be wiped clean? or-
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
We-
I'm
if
definitely
we
happy
can't
to look
sell
into
them, we
options.
donate them or something
Yeah.
like that. But if we can repurpose them, even anywhere in town hall, highway, I don't know,
Yeah.
repurpose them. I mean, we're not gonna just throw them away.
Yeah, and they won't just sit in a closet too,
Yeah.
you know,
we-
take up
we're-
space.
We're not interested in storing
Yeah.
candy, so I'll be here alone.
Okay, good.
And then just with these new computers too, the fact that they're a laptop versus the tablet, guys that get tied up at a hospital on a crash, they can actually take the laptop out. They can do search warrants if they need to do, gonna go for blood or hospital records. They can canine with the canine stuff. And Matt, he has to keep canine logs, so he has his at-home time where he does that. He can actually take the laptop out of his cruiser and keep it all in one place. That way, he's not using a personal computer to keep logs of canine stuff. And then on top of that, they come with a bit more bells and whistles. They have an internal barcode scanner, so you could scan a license as long as that's hooked up to the records management system. And instead of right now we have the puck on it for our internet connection. These have it built in, so anytime one of those pucks break, it's like $400. So to not have to worry about those falling, getting slammed in a door, stepped on, would be very nice as well.
If you remember last year, guys, you actually gave me money when I asked for, I think it was several $1,000s for pucks and everything else. And you gave it to me, and then we had that initial meeting when we found out we might have to replace these computers, and I gave it back. So I do give money back to you.
He wants it for part of the minutes.
I gave you something back.
Tamara, put that in the minutes.
Yeah,
They gave
full
the money back.
transparency here.
Karen, do we need to do a unanticipated funds hearing because we're going from 8 to 28?
We will, but we need to have a hearing for the bridge money that we've received in December. So I'll include this, and then also the FEMA grant money that we, I wanted to do it all together.
So I'll make a two-parted motion that we accept the grant from New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety, as well as expend $9,315 from the IT hardware capital reserve fund.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I'm an aye as well, so we will move forward with that. Thank you, and this is not the first time you've been in front of us with grant money, so keep it up.
I'm working on it.
Keep it up. We like when you come.
Yeah.
Do
Oh,
you have
something.
the original
I'm gonna make
sign?
you guys start liking him.
Yeah.
You want them to sign your?
Yes.
Folks, just, I know I sound like a broken record when I say this, when you vote for stuff in for us, but it goes a long way for the guys.
So I need
It motivates the
Andy to
lieutenant
sign
to
here
go
and
find
here,
money
and
for
then
the
I
town.
need 3 of you to
And when we
initial.
are able to get new products like this and keep up.
There's
with everything.
initials, as
It
well.
goes a long way, so thank you guys. I really
You're welcome. Well, I mean, for the guys to do their job, they have to have equipment that's,
Well, I know, but
modern
it
and
wasn't
that
always
works.
that way, and I don't think it wasn't the fault of the board or anything, it just wasn't done. You know, we've changed the whole focus of this PD and the face of the PD. Stuff like this just has to be
sign
helped.
here, initials on the second page, and then John has to initial.
Huge morale booster for me. When I told them this, it was like Christmas morning for them.
Yeah,
That's
they're all-
great.
We might get new laptops, and it's
Great,
they're excited. So.
wonderful.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
You're
for
welcome.
everything. Appreciate it. I'm just gonna get that. Once they're done signing it, I can make a copy.
I think Karen needs to notarize it too. Just need your initials.
Does it need a notary?
It does, but
Yes.
I'm not a notary.
Oh, I can run down, have Daphne do it.
Tell her to watch a video that we actually
Should've brought
signed
my
it in her
stamp.
presence.
I'm sorry?
Should've brought my stamp.
Oh,
And I'll
man.
line up my car too. Oh, Daphne's got it.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
All right, next up on discussion action items is safer road, access road at the BRC.
Alright, so, as promised, we went out and got a handful of other quotes, had lots more discussions, with, folks who are more familiar, with this than me, with building roads, et cetera. Had several people walk the property, working with Kip, working with, of course, Andy, working with Wayne, to get a handful of these quotes, and, so I am here to ask the board to, let us encumber the required funds to do the middle of the road, didn't do that on purpose, money for the road.
Wink, wink.
In addition to the logging that's necessary. The, total is 94.5, Karen?
Correct.
So you can see the Sanborn quote, so I also feel good about it. We're having someone in town, give us a quote, which was, I thought, a positive thing,
And the Sanborn quote seems much more detailed than
than the first one.
your first one.
Yep,
Like,
that's kind of what I was saying, this has been an experience, through and through, and so we've kind of, Wayne has built a road or two and maintained a road or two in his time, and Kip also had a chance to, ask questions, walk the property. Kip was actually the one who received this quote, the Sanborn quote. And so I feel most comfortable, with this one based on discussions with folks, in town, folks who know what they're doing, and knowing that we have the funds in budgets so that we can get this safety project done, in short order.
And John, a couple of things had come up, and we had a meeting yesterday, about the police building, and we talked about this road briefly. And one was that under this new estimate, the thought was not to move the water tank that we had previously discussed, is that correct?
So that's the current thinking, and based on discussions with, with Mr. Sanborn and his team, it seems as though there's not a necessity to move the tank, which actually is it's a win, right? Because we
Yeah.
not only do we not have to move it, but then we don't have to repipe everything, which
Right.
that was also a big part of the hassle.
The other discussion that came up yesterday was the potential for laying some groundwork of sort of base electrical so that we could in the future put lights
Mhm.
either along the road or out there. I don't know if that is something that we would go back to Sanborn about, or we could talk to Kip about that, but I think there was a pretty strong feeling that we would wanna give ourselves the option without to just do that at the beginning, rather than dig it
I mean,
later.
laying conduit is a super easy,
Right.
cheap,
Yeah, I don't think
thing
that
to
should change
do.
the price
yeah,
significantly.
it's not gonna be, and we have funds that we can use to do that. We have the funds from the tank,
Right.
moving the tank,
Okay, perfect.
et cetera. And I would also, I'm just gonna highlight this, I'm not gonna ask for contingency money, for this. I don't think that we're gonna need it, I think we're gonna be okay, without it. But I just wanna highlight that we do have a contingency built in with additional funds that are available for the road, should it be necessary, and, we ARPA. And, you know, if I was gonna ask for a contingency of 10%, we're talking, you know, $9,500, so we have, ARPA can handle that, in worst case scenario.
What's the current, I know you and Karen have been working together about finding unspent funds from this year. Karen, do you have a kind of a total breakdown of, I know you did some hunting just to round up some potential funds for this project?
We would be looking at $7,000 from executive office, $3,000 from insurance, $8,500 from emergency management, $2,700 from mosquito, and then $73,300 out of highway. That would get you to the $94,500.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
What's in that folder you got there?
I'll tell you better tomorrow after this weather is.
And those are all appropriations for the past calendar year that were not spent?
Correct.
Okay, so, a little extra.
And
So no need to use ARPA now, but to use that as a wiggle room if we needed it.
if we needed it, but we're not anticipating needing it. I just wanna highlight, cause I know, you know, folks, the questions come up once in a while about, you know, certain expenses that we had, and that people know that a couple of roads washed out, right, we had to take care of those roads. Those washouts were covered by Federal Emergency Management Administration money, and so that is what has given us some of the breathing room to be able to take on this, this project. And Chief, not to put words in your mouth, but just to kind of restate what you and I have discussed, that this is something that you consider to be a
Public safety issue.
public safety
Okay.
issue.
So we were able to free up that money by FEMA stepping in to help with the roads?
The FEMA money, yeah, helps
Gotcha.
give us the padding in the highway budget to be able to
Gotcha.
take on an extra project that addresses a public safety issue.
And the rec commission is completely 100% behind this, is my understanding, and very much in favor of it.
Yep, unanimous.
Board questions, queries, thoughts for John?
Just a quick question, the scope of this estimate, is it something different in terms of the other ones? Because you said
No.
middle of the road, and does that just mean that was the one that cost in the middle?
Yeah, poor choice of words in this particular circumstance, but yes, it was the one in the middle.
But the scope of what's
Same,
being done is the
Yeah.
same?
Yeah.
Is there some reason why they're so,
vastly different.
yeah,
I don't wanna speak out of turn, I think that they're, you know, different companies have different, perspectives on projects, I guess is, but I walked it, I walked the property with, the lowest and the highest ones, personally, and then, Kip, and I don't think, you didn't walk it with Sanborn. And Kip walked it with Mr. Sanborn, but you know, everyone is very clear on, everyone was working off the same, drawings, the same documents, and,
So the biggest difference I can see in the two quotes is the first quote did not include a top layer of 4 inches of recycled asphalt, which will make the road
More stable.
less like a dirt road, more like a paved road without paving it. But that's a big difference, so now your base layer is
Between your-
16 inches instead of 12.
Right.
So that would probably make up a lot of
The difference between the 50,000 quote and the 80,000
Yeah.
quote, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a big difference.
it's gonna be it's almost a paved road without paving the road.
yeah, and my perspective is, if we're gonna do this, let's not try to cut corners, and do it right.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so you're comfortable that we have the funds that we need to do this without any taxpayer impact?
Yes.
Okay,
And then, so this is gonna go through Olson Field, and just, I've had this discussion with Andy. We are going to,
the other end.
the other Andy, we're going to, rename the Olson, the lower field where T-ball is now, the Olson Field. Hopefully, we're gonna look to make that field more workable for the current teams that use today's Olson Field, and then today's Olson Field will ideally become the new T-ball field. So kind of the idea of a switcheroo there.
Great, great. I think this is a great idea. I personally nearly got in a head-on collision on that little dirt road at the night of the Peach Project. Even though they had walkie-talkies, and they were like, oh, somebody didn't listen to us when we told them not to go. So I've been worried about that, especially at night when people are there. And I think if we have the wiggle room in last year's budget to encumber these funds, it would fix a major safety issue. I think we've gotten lucky that we haven't had somebody get hit by a car or get hurt on that section of road. And my understanding is we would probably fence that off or somehow
We'll-
repurpose that as a pedestrian
That'll be gated,
walkway.
yeah.
We'll make grass it.
Yeah, that was a suggestion, actually, put grass it, just to make another visual reminder that it's not for cars.
Yeah.
So it's something we could think about.
Can I just add on something you just
Please.
said? Technically, this is not a no taxpayer impact because it's
True.
$95,000 not
Of
going
course.
back to offset taxes,
Of course.
so
No additional taxes need to be
no
Right.
additional taxes, yes.
correct. That is a more accurate statement. Any other questions?
We all good with
Concerns
it?
or thoughts?
I don't wanna jump the gun.
Okay, sorry.
If we're good with it, I'm happy to make a motion.
I think it's a good use of taxpayer money. It's something that is under our purview to deal with safety issues in the town. And I think we have the wiggle room to do it in our budget, so
I'll make a motion.
sounds like a motion.
Or
We'll make a motion for $94,500 to be encumbered to complete the, road, what are we gonna call it?
Access road?
Safer access road at the BRC.
gotta fix that.
What? Yeah.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will move forward. Thank you for your very quick work on that. You had a very compressed time frame to try to get this done. And thank you to the federal government and FEMA for helping us cover some of our road repairs to free up some of the funds to do this. Great. Next up, we have warrant articles. All right, Karen,
So the
take it away.
First warrant article is to raise and appropriate $180,000 for various capital reserve funds.
I
So
like this idea.
historically, these 5 warrant articles,
We hatched
these
this up.
5 capital reserve funds have been 5 separate warrant articles at town meeting. So the funding amounts are the same as they have been, or close to the same, small differences. So IT hardware is traditionally $25,000, which would cover a 5-year cycle to replace all of our equipment in all of the buildings. I'm requesting that to be increased to $30,000, and the reason for that $5,000 increase is to cover the new MGTs that are for PD, so that, when 5 years comes up, we'd be able to include those in our replacement schedule.
Computer costs are up too.
Hmm?
Computer costs are up too.
Or up to, yes.
It looks like, I looked back on the past 4 years of these just to make sure I understood, so we had level funded that 25K a year with no community, major concerns for the past 4 years, so it's just a small increase.
The revaluation is $25,000, that's, the standard that we've always done. Maintenance of town-owned buildings goes between 25 and 50 depending on the year. So right now, there is about $95,000 in that fund. We had withdrawn, some money this last year to cover the budget deficit from '23. So this would be to replenish that and then to plan on furnace replacements and windows at BRC. Fire maintenance vehicles is $50,000, that's the traditional amount, and the maintenance of town-owned bridges is $25,000.
Can I ask a couple questions, just looking back on those? So fire vehicles was 50,000 the past 2 years, and in 2021, it was 0. I'm assuming that was just a select board attempt to lower taxes during the worst of the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay, so this is
I think that was the year we bought a fire truck too, wasn't it?
2021?
I'm not sure actually.
2021 we didn't buy a fire truck,
Didn't
maybe it
No.
was 19.
I think
There
the
must
last time
have-
you bought a truck, Kevin was still chief.
Really?
I think so.
My impression was it was probably a cost-saving maneuver during the worst of the, pandemic, because it had been 25 the year before, then 0, then 50, then 50.
And I think it bumped up to 50 to try to replenish what
Right.
was not
Okay.
put in the year
So
prior.
this is stable for, this will be the 3rd year that it's at 50. Okay, and then the town-owned bridges, we did not bring forward the past 2 years.
Correct.
I think that was because we had some extra money coming from the state, or we didn't feel that we needed it based on our fund balance.
So right now you
We
have
have only 18,000, right? Town bridges.
21,000 in town
Oh,
bridges.
21, yeah.
We don't have any bridges left on the red list. Those were all corrected when we repaired the Mill Road Bridge. So this would just be planning ahead in case there is an emergency.
So I don't remember, do you remember why we did not fund it the past 2 years? Did we just feel like we were good because Mill Road was
'Cause
getting wrapped
We were
up?
still working on that project the last 2 years.
Do you feel like it being at 21 is probably a little on the low side for comfort?
Correct. We
Okay.
would like to put in another 25.
Okay. Which is what we had put the 2 years prior, in 2020 and 2021.
With that closing it on 50 grand, will that be enough, do you think, or will you wanna see that continue going forward for a little while? What's the goal of this?
I think that's a good Wayne question. How much money do you want in that fund? Your bridge fund?
Bridge fund, I put down what we did, 25,000.
But what's the goal for how much money you'd want in there in case there's an emergency?
I don't know, how much money do we have in there right now?
20.
21.
21? I don't know, I'd go 25,000. Most of our bridges are in pretty good shape, so.
So if we have 50 in it, close to 50 by the end of next year, we're okay for a bit?
I would think, I mean, they're pretty expensive, I know,
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
pretty high, but if we lose a bridge, hopefully we got FEMA to back us up and we.
It's gonna be more than 50 grand for this bridge.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
looking at least $500,000 if you're gonna have to replace anything.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
Crowley Falls is like $1 million,
This
wasn't
is just kind of for, this would be more for like repairs than any major
Crawley
work.
Falls, I think, is 1.2, and that was,
it? Was Mill Road. And
Mill
that,
Road was about 400,
and that was just a repair,
Yeah.
so.
and Crawley Falls
So we'll
really
probably
So this is
Keep
really
it
just
on
like
for a little bit.
contingency fund, basically, just to kind of give us a little buffer.
This would be if, something got washed out, we
Right.
had it
Just repairs.
Band-Aided until,
FEMA kicks in.
Okay. So all of those essentially, the first 2 are completely level funded. This will be the 5th year without a change. And the other ones just have some mild up and down over time. But Karen and I had talked about just trying to lump them all together, because looking back over many, many years, these are always widely majority approved by the taxpayers.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
I'll move we accept that warrant article.
Second.
All in favor of
Aye.
warrant article 1? And I'm an aye, so we will put those ones together. Great, okay.
I am not doing that at town meeting.
What? I'll do it.
Article 2, I actually want to break out into 2 separate warrant articles. So it will be to see if the town will vote to change the purpose of the existing police facility capital reserve fund and rename it to the municipal building capital reserve fund. So that just broadens the scope so that if the town office were to go, that you'd still be able to utilize those capital reserve funds towards that project. And additionally, to raise and appropriate $25,000 to be added to that fund, but we'd like to have that as 2 separate warrant articles in case there is any challenges to the renaming of the article, that we could still fund it
Gotcha.
and move forward.
I'll move the first half,
Second.
Which is to change the name.
yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye on that. And then the second half would be to raise and appropriate $25,000, which that fund currently has about 75 in it, I believe.
It's sitting at just 100
So what is,
111 with the market value.
with interest, yeah.
so you're gonna change the name?
Yeah.
And then, what does the second one read?
It would be to raise and appropriate $25,000, and then I've got to work on the language on how we want to deposit it into that fund should the
Well, I
renaming fail.
think if you,
Yeah.
I think if you put that before the other one, you can name it as the Police Capital Reserve Fund, and then the next
Well, let's
warrant
try-
article would
Switch the
rename
order.
it.
Yeah, fund it first, then rename
And
it.
then rename it.
Okay.
My only question is what is, I mean, the biggest question is gonna be, what is the end goal of that fund? How much, what is that 100,125 gonna accomplish?
The purpose was to go towards engineering, design, and construction. So you can use any portion of that towards the planning phase or towards construction as like down payment to bond if you had
So
surplus of
you're not,
funds.
you're a
But engineering is
engineering
gonna
and
be involved.
an architect and design is gonna so follow.
Maybe we get some college kids back.
Get what you pay for, buddy.
They were good plans.
All right, so we passed part 1, or what will now be maybe part 2, to rename the fund. Is there a motion on the table to add the $25,000 to that fund?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will pass that as a split warrant, probably warrant 2 and 3, 3 and 4. Well, we'll have
Because-
SB2, then we'll have the
SB2.
operating budget, so these will probably be 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well.
We'll see.
So the next one is to establish a capital reserve fund for public safety radios, installation and related equipment. So last year you had raised and appropriated $168,000 for the firefighters to get new portable radios
Yep.
and all of the base stations. So if you take that 168 plus the 55,000, that would be the replacement cost for PD radios and 17,000 for replacement cost for highway. It comes to $240,000. The lifespan of those radios is about 8 years, so over 8 years, you'd be looking at $30,000 each year. So this would be to prevent that from that large,
The
big ticket item.
unexpected, right, that was relatively unexpected last year. And we don't have a current CRF that really covers that, right? So
Not for this
making a new
one.
one makes sense.
Did Chief leave? My question is 30,000 gonna be enough to start, because, yeah,
Well,
Wayne
we
got-
just did all the fire,
You did all
Right.
fire, and you did, Wayne had radios that were encumbered.
Yep.
You encumbered that from 22 to replace those for 23, so I think
So
that it
those
would
two
be
are
okay to
good.
start for police
Yes.
what's your lifespan of your
radios.
radios?
Which
What
one?
versions?
Portable or the?
Both, what versions you run?
Yeah, the portables are the latest version. I don't, actually, let me get Chris, he's right here.
yeah, because
My only thought is, we're thinking
If they
8
need to
years,
go
but I don't
sooner.
think police has 8 years until
Gotcha.
they're gonna need an upgrade.
But
Okay.
their all-in cost was 55, so even if you're over 2 years, you'd be able to do it. It's
And that
estimated-
Police,
And that
police
includes-
all in has to be
55?
more than 55.
He said 55, yes.
Oh, yeah?
So that's what I'm going with.
Oh, okay, so that's not as much as I thought it was
That's
gonna be.
$5,000 a cruiser.
I got a guy.
Okay, we've got the guy.
Ready?
Yeah.
We're talking about the capital reserve fund for public safety radios.
Okay.
And we know that fire is good and highway is good right now, but we're wondering how you guys are looking for the next couple of years for radio replacement.
Cruisers are, all of the frontline cars have brand new Motorola's. As we get new cars, the understanding at this point is, as we get new cars, that aren't replacing line cars, those will have to have new radios put in them. If we get new cars that are gonna replace a line car, we'll take the radio out of that and put it in, which actually we just did with one car, because it's a detail car, no longer has a radio in it, that's gonna go in on another car. So,
So I think we're all set up.
we're set on cruisers with
Okay.
these, as we've added more staff for the ones on our hips. We're definitely low on those. We have enough for right now. I just bought some replacement batteries, and I think we're waiting potentially on Lee PD got a grant. They're buying radios that I don't think we really need. The standard model is what we have, and they are potentially going to let us have those. So, and I don't know how many we get, but if we get those, I think we'll be pretty good with that. And then replacement is usually 7 years, 7 to 10 years on radios.
Before I knew about Lee, I had already gotten with the CIP committee, and I had put them, I believe, on the CIP schedule for, I think, 25 and 26, to replace 7 1 year and 8 the next.
Okay.
'Cause
So if we
came up
put
with an idea.
30,000 in this year, we
Yeah,
should be okay.
oh, yeah, because I'm not, because I don't anticipate, I mean, obviously, we're not asking for any this year.
Right.
And it might not even be next year, but I needed to get it on the CIP calendar, so, which is always a fluid document anyway, you can push and mix and match, so if we push them up to 26, 27, because our radio's now, but yeah, 30,000 I think would be plenty initially. And then Joe's gonna be good for at least another 8 years probably.
Yeah.
He just bought all his, and I think Wayne bought his this year too, right?
Yep.
So,
Okay.
so
Okay.
if we get, because I wanna be on an off schedule with those two departments.
Sure.
We don't wanna replace 100
Yeah.
radios in a year, obviously.
Okay. Does that
Yep.
Does that
satisfy
answer
you?
your question?
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Paul's an aye, I'm an aye, so that one passes. Okay. And I think it's good that that's a standalone one because it's new. So
Yes,
not
just
having
in
that
case.
one. Yep, perfect.
So the next one I put standalone because we're raising the appropriation amount quite a bit.
Yes.
So the highway vehicles is usually $50,000. This year we're asking for $150,000. So the reason for that is there's $129 in the account now. Wayne anticipates the replacement costs for a new International to be increased to about $290,000 for one truck. And he anticipates needing 3 or 4 of them over the next 6 years. So this would be sort of that intention to be able to replace that first one, and then if you fund it with the same amount over the next 4 or 5 years, it should be enough to cover those costs. It would be no additional tax impact because there was $150,000 placed in his building fund in '23, and so we would just not fund that this year and put the money in the highway vehicle account instead.
It looks like that was funded at 50,000 in 20 and 21, 100,000 in 22, and then 50,000 last year. So this would be, the highest amount we've funded it in 5 years.
Yeah.
But, if the trucks really cost almost 300K, then we don't have close to enough in there.
This is in lieu of, is what you're saying?
In lieu.
In lieu of the building fund, yes, because we won't need additional funds in that account this year because that project.
It just happens to be the same dollar value that we appropriated last year for the building. This year,
Yes.
150.
Is that what it usually is?
In the building fund?
That was sort of a
No.
one-time cost to complete the highway building.
She's saying for tax impact, it's a 1-for-1, so it's not really a tax impact, it's,
For 1 year, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Well,
lot.
this is only a 1-year warrant article.
Right,
until the next year.
Yep.
exactly, yep, exactly. So yeah, I think if we can make a case to the voters and, let them know what's in that account and how it right now would not even, reach half of paying for one truck, I think they'll understand, although it's a lot of money.
What is the CIP ship for highway vehicle replacement.
That's what he added to the CIP this year. I think he staggered them, I think he wants the first one in 25 and then staggered them after that. But he's in, I think you put what, 3 or 4 trucks on the CIP?
What's that?
Did you put 3 or 4 trucks on the CIP?
I think 3.
3.
We're replacing the two older ones in case they go bad. And then we're gonna add within the next, 5 years, we need to add a truck because we're up to capacity on the truck, especially in the wintertime when we're plowing. Because each truck has a route, takes us 3 hours to do each route. So when we get these other roads, Three Ponds Campground and the other roads, we're gonna have to put another truck in there.
Okay.
Because we just ain't gonna have enough trucks now. And it's getting harder to find guys to rent a truck. They're getting out of business.
Yeah.
They're all leaving.
And Wayne, you're happy with this amount of 150 to put in there?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she said, but this is only gonna take care of one truck.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
hopefully, unless the price goes up, and then, nothing we can do.
Yep.
And these trucks are a little, the truck that I'm after is a Western Star. It's a little different than the Internationals. So getting away from the Internationals, because they're having so much trouble. And going to the Western Stars, which I can get them right at Fairfield, up in Concord. They bring their trucks in and they put the plows on, the bodies on, and they have the chassis that we all ready to go.
Great. Okay. Any other board discussion about this warrant?
Move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll pass that one, and then flip it over, there's a couple on the back.
So the next one is to establish a revolving fund for solar. So this would be to create a new account for the purpose of maintaining and operating the town-owned solar panels, which we should be wrapping that up in the next couple of weeks. And then the revenue from that would be from the sale of the renewable energy credits. It would be deposited into that fund, and then the town treasurer, upon a vote of the select board, would be authorized to release those funds.
And the rec credits are somewhere in the ballpark of like 5,000 a year?
Yep.
If, let's say we built up those credits year after year after year after year with interest, and we had a lot more money in that fund than we needed, would we have the ability to transfer anything out, or would our hands be tied by the wording of this?
Welcome, thank you. I think by the wording of this, but I think you would take it to town meeting and you would withdraw those funds and
If needed, okay.
deposit them someplace
Okay.
else if that's what you wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Does it make sense to just say that these funds can be used for further renewable energy investments or anything like that, and we can change it if we needed to something else later?
So the purpose of maintaining and operating town-owned solar panels is pretty much as broad as you're gonna get for how to expend the money.
Maintaining
Yeah.
and operating.
I think it's probably fine, I just wanted to make sure we had an out if they end up performing really well and we have minimal maintenance and the money really grows, that it sounds like we could deal with that
Okay.
after the fact.
I mean, so where it says such funds may be expended only for the purpose for which it was created, does that mean that you can't?
Unless the town voted to allow you to withdraw it for another reason, right? You can't just take it out and spend it on something else.
Well, no, I understand, but does that allow you to then withdraw it when you have that language in there, is my question.
Well, this authorizes the treasurer upon a vote of the select board to withdraw it towards that purpose. If
Right.
you wanted to expand the purpose, then you would have to take it back to town meeting to broaden it, close the fund, or do whatever else you would
Okay.
deem appropriate at that time.
I think this is a great idea, because it's taking money generated basically by the panels and putting it back in for the maintenance of the panels without having to go to the taxpayers for that money. I think it's a really smart idea for a fund.
I mean, there's other options for special revenue funds, but then you have to go, you can deposit them, but you can only expend the funds with a town meeting vote. So you're not gonna wanna wait for every March to withdraw $5,000
Right.
to pay for the contract.
Does maintaining and operating include replacing?
I would feel that would fall under that, or if you're paying for, I mean, if something is broken and you're gonna have to pay for service costs, I I would think that that would fall under that, right? Because
Like
those are,
replacing a panel or something, I would assume would fall under this, yeah.
and all of those items are included in the, what's called the OEM, the operating and maintenance agreement that revision was drafted.
Great.
And they've spelled out billable hours and all of that.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will pass that. And then we have community power, which we've heard about many, many times.
Yes. So this is just the vote to adopt the community power aggregation plan, and then it allows the select board to develop and implement that power to offer those default rates.
And this is the official language that it matches the RSA requirements.
Yep, Rick drafted it, so I will submit it to council to have them
Great,
review
sure.
the entire warrant once it's
Perfect.
complete.
Any questions about that? We've obviously talked about this many times at this board.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, so
Uh,
those are ours.
We had a staff meeting yesterday, so that's all I really anticipate as far as warrant articles. I would, I guess I anticipate one more, which Rick Murphy has already brought to your attention. He'd like to take that Seabrook money, that $8,500 that comes from Seabrook Station annually, and deposit that into a revolving fund.
Right,
So he's still working on drafting sort of that scope,
that's right.
but I don't anticipate any other big ticket items.
Okay,
The next two articles in your packet are petition warrant articles that were received. So the first is to install speed tables along Pickpocket Road to curtail traffic, speeding cars and motorcycles. There is no appropriation that is included in this petition article, so this is would just be advisory in nature.
okay,
And then the other that is received is for SB two. So that will be, we'll post the public hearing notice, we'll have the petitioner speak to that, and then that will be at the town meeting for vote.
great. And just a reminder that the library is having a SD2 information session on January 18th at 6 p.m., which is going to be informational only, does not support town meeting or SD2, just provides information on both. So for anybody who's interested, January 18th at 6 p.m. at the library. Okay, is that all we have for warrants at this point?
For warrant articles,
Okay.
yes. Can we do encumbrances?
Yep, so we will move on to regular business. We'll start with Karen, who has a little list for us here.
So we'll go through encumbrance requests first. So the planning board is looking to encumber $1,800 for an audio woodworking quote, and that's to create a new podium and a new lectern for the, we just have it in here, but they want to have a podium
For the
set
public?
the public to use.
That would be great.
So they would, I think the materials are being donated to match this wood here, and then this is just the construction cost here.
And they have the money in there.
They have the money in
To
the planning
encumber?
board budget, yes.
Moved.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's a pass.
The library has $16,765.16 remaining in their budget, which they would like to encumber. $3,156.72 is to go towards 2 new computers and docking stations. And then the remaining $13,608.44 they would like to encumber towards the amphitheater project.
I think they had an unanticipated issue already that was gonna maybe increase the cost a little bit with some pipes that were discovered when they were working on it, so that will give them a little buffer for that, I'm assuming.
Isn't there already a contingency in that?
There is, they have, I think, did they say a 10% in their original plan? But they're, yeah, they're just getting started.
So is this beyond what we've
Yes.
already authorized in terms of ARPA? So, so how did this come about? I
The
guess?
encumbrance, I think there was that budget deficit where they had double counted that $50,000, and then they had come up with a couple of, I think this was part of their plan to close that gap.
Oh, right, for the ad alternates. that's true, they had to remove things from the bid originally, so this may be to add back some of the things that had been removed, because they have the money in their budget.
I was under the impression when we voted, they had the exact amount of money.
Yeah.
I think they had increased the ARPA amount, they removed the add alternates, and then I think Janice was planning to use some of the encumbered funds to close the rest of the gap, if I remember correctly.
I think they had the exact amount of money after they took out multiple,
Things,
Add
so this is
alternates.
putting back in that we're kind of skirting the
But I don't believe,
plan.
but I don't believe that the intention was to add those items back in.
That was my understanding. That was not the intention, to add it back in.
To not add them back in.
Right.
well, I
We have a
think,
trustee here, do they wanna speak to the 13,000? I mean, there should be a bill or a quote or something, right?
It's just the regular trimmers contract. And the notice of award was the 342,252 that you had already
Yeah.
approved.
Right, and that took out some of the add-all payments. So that was why we got it down to 342. And then we did fund it's basically the exact amount between ARPA and what we had for fundraising. And so now we're looking at encumbering funds, because I mean, we can come back to you if you would rather do, change orders with ARPA funds, we can do that as well. But that's up to the board.
was the board's intention that this 13,000 was to potentially bring back some of those ad alternates? Or what was the intentionality of this?
Well, yeah, just because we not only add alternates, but, I mean, we're only 2 weeks into the project and we have, about $10,000 in change orders already. We have taken stuff out to reduce those change orders, but we had.
Change orders because of unanticipated
Because of
issues, not because you're trying to like,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
because of unanticipated. I mean, we did have to move a septic line, we had to create a larger, a higher wall, because the septic tank, is this far from the ground level, and so we couldn't plant the trees that we wanted there, the buffer of vegetation, so now we have to have a higher wall there. So that was the first $7,000. And like I said, we took stuff out to make that more reasonable, that cost more reasonable, but then we've also got the $3,000 for the septic line. I mean, we expect that most of these unanticipated things are gonna happen at the beginning of the project, so that's, I mean, they're digging around right now, and that's when we expect to see those, so hopefully, once we get everything lined up, we won't be facing that many change orders.
So Liz, if you're removing items from the project to offset the change orders that you've authorized, right, the net project cost is still the same?
Say that again?
If you said that you took items out of the project to offset the change orders.
No, not to offset the change orders, to offset the price of the project. So we had add alternates at the beginning. So the cost from trimmers was $372,000 or something like that. And so then we took things out. We took benches out, we took, I can't remember off the top of my head. So we took things out to match the 242, which is what we asked the board for.
Yep.
Well,
Karen?
which is what we filled with ARPA funds.
I guess
What's the normal contingency, 10%?
10%.
So our
So they
contingency.
should have 37,000 in contingency.
Right, so I guess I misunderstood. I thought the encumbrance would be the amount of the encumbrance would be to lower the request of the ARPA funds. I'm not sure that that's
To
the
lower
case.
what?
Right, so I thought that you were encumbering this amount of funds and that would ultimately lower the amount of money that you would need from ARPA.
No. I mean,
So
unless.
then is this,
Well, so that we don't have to ask you for more funding for the change orders from ARPA. If that was where I don't know what the board intended to do, obviously to have
So I
to
think,
have a project funded,
yeah, so I think what I'm hearing you say, Karen, is because we have a set project cost in front of us and we've already allocated that money, we can't really encumber this because we don't have an active bill to match it to that hasn't already been covered. Is that,
I mean, you can encumber this towards that project, and then it would be up to the board's discretion how much or how little that would impact ARPA funds that you wanted to release. Right, I mean, the board has only approved authorization of spending up to 342,
Right.
and not any more than that.
right,
So this would add 13,000 to that.
or would reduce the amount that
Not
we had to
necessarily.
fund?
No, they're
Reduce-
asking to
yeah.
add 13,000 to the 342.
That's how I understand the ask.
I mean, it makes sense to me that if the library has extra money in their budget, that using it towards this project makes sense. But if you feel that for like bookkeeping purposes, that we need to essentially include that, you know, as like a pay down of the ARPA, we could always do that, right? That saves us money right now. And then depending what happens with that project in the future, like they said, if there's a big issue, they're gonna have to come back to us anyways. Because my impression is to encumber, you really need to have an active contract or charge, and we don't really have an active charge for this, right? Because we've already said we would fund the project at the equivalent amount of the contract. So this is sort of above and beyond. So what do you think the best way to handle it is for us to decide to discount the ARPA for now and then just stick a pin in it and see how it turns out?
I think that's how it makes more sense. I mean, I don't see why you would approve
Right.
increasing the project cost
Right.
at this point.
Since we don't know what the final project cost is
Right,
gonna
so
be.
you would
Yep.
reduce the amount of ARPA funds by that dollar amount.
Yep.
Because
Motion.
the contingency fund should be
Yep.
enough to offset the
Right.
change orders that have already been authorized.
And if something hits the fan down the line, we deal with it down the line.
But
I
why
hear-
are we even doing that? I mean, we had it all set, so I'm not quite sure
Because
why
there's
we're
because they have
rearranging.
extra unanticipated unspent revenue. So, you know, their other alternate is just you could just return this $13,000 to the taxpayers.
Right.
But if we use that towards the project, it lets us pull 13,000 back in ARPA that we can use on something else. So it's just moving money around. And we have a motion on the table to do that.
Second.
All in favor?
I just want to clarify that my
Yes.
motion is to apply unexpended funds of 13,608.44 to offset the ARPA costs of the library amphitheater project.
Great.
Which was what?
130,000, so that would drop that down by 13,608.44. Okay, so we have a motion, and did we have a second? A second? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Paul?
Abstain.
Okay. Next.
Wayne has a quote for $2,800 that he would like to encumber from Boulder Tree to remove the tree over on Scrabble Road. I think he's already brought that to your attention, but he has the firm quote here.
Which one? Scrabble?
Sure that's gonna be necessary after tonight?
63 Scrabble.
Sure that's gonna be necessary
Supposed
after
to be
tonight?
really windy tonight. Maybe it'll take care of it for you.
I'm not saying anything. We have tonight, and we also gonna have Saturday.
He's like, "My lips are sealed."
Oh, really? Oh,
All right.
If everything holds up, we'll be fine.
It's warming up, it'll all be raining.
So-
All right.
Is that in-
Motion by John?
Is that in the packet? This?
Oh, the
I don't-
encumbrances?
I
No,
don't-
they're
No,
not.
she has them all here.
There's no-
Jennifer.
oh,
I don't think so.
Okay.
Wayne has a quote for Bell and Flynn. This is for.
Wait, hold on.
Wait. We have a motion, but not a
Oh,
vote yet.
sorry.
She's going ahead. So we have a motion by John for the
Second.
2,800. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
That's an aye. I'm an aye as well. Okay. Bell and Flynn.
Wayne has a quote for $12,750 that he would like to encumber from his road money warrant article. So this quote was to do the work on Pickpocket and Peabody from the washouts, which would be 100% reimbursed from FEMA. So
But we have to pay it
he
first.
would like to encumber the funds so that we can pay it, and then it would be reimbursed from FEMA sometime in the future.
What would it be used,
I'm sorry?
what would it be used to pay for?
These bills,
The
the Bell and Flynn bills,
pickpocket?
Pickpocket and Peabody.
I didn't know if this was money to go to the highway shed, because you
No,
had talked about.
that's separate. He doesn't have that quote yet, but I think that would be, he will have that shortly, and he would like to request that to be encumbered as well.
And we have
He did
that
it for the quoted time.
$12,750 in the budget, even with what we just appropriated for the
Didn't they
BRC
already do
road.
the work?
No.
Oh. Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that's a pass. And the last one's econ development.
I have one more after that, but yes.
Oh, okay.
Econ Dev is to encumber $7,000 towards feasibility study towards the municipal complex at the rec center. So Steve Cummings has done a quote in December, and he's willing to do all of that work by the end of January is what he's planning to do.
This is also, a small amount of this is also gonna go toward him staking out the road, right?
Yeah.
The
And
Leah
he's-
road.
And he had been very involved in BRC planning in the past, is my understanding, and setting up the septic that's there and everything.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Anyone want a motion for that?
Motion.
So, and what are we getting for $7,000?
There's no survey work done, like, there's no engineering or survey work done on the rec property. It's like hardly any. And so Steve is gonna give us, well, you have the letter.
So this is feasibility study and then reviewing site work, so starting with those preliminary plans. So there's no survey or boundary work, so he'd be firming that up, he'd be staking out the road, and sort of starting that preliminary layout of the property.
To figure out if it's feasible for us to put a combined town
Town
offices,
campus.
police
Yep.
building there on that site or not. And this money is out of econ development budget?
Right, so it's in the long-range planning line of the general government budget, but the
Okay.
purpose that it was slated for was econ dev.
So I just want to clarify, the road price just went up $4,000. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
It's
you could think
the-
of it that way, sure.
Yes, I knew that this was coming, so
Yeah.
this was not a surprise, but
But when it was presented to the board, we should have.
that's fair, yeah. Yeah, in order to make sure that the road gets done correctly, one of the things that was asked was that we get the engineering site work done, and that hasn't been done, and so this is
100% agree, but this should have been part of the road.
totally fair.
And what's the remainder of it, Andy?
3,000 for a feasibility study to see if it's actually practical to put a combined police station town hall on the grounds of
The rec.
that makes more sense than the 7,000 for a feasibility study. Sure.
So it's 4 and 3.
Right, so
It's
4
com-
for the road, 3 for the feasibility study,
It's
which,
coming, all of it's coming, the 7 is coming from the long-range planning line.
I'll move it.
I thought it was the other way around. I guess I'm confused reading this.
You gotta look at the top of what the job is for, when it says roadway,
In my
when
head, it was the
says-
other way around too, but.
Maybe I read it wrong.
I don't know.
It's fine. So we have a motion on the table. Any further questions?
Second.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So we have a motion and a second for the $7,000 encumbrance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And you said you had one last one for us?
The last one I have is the CAI contract for the tax map update. So it was 3,100 that was appropriated, and we still haven't been billed out for that. So I would like to encumber that towards
What is that for exactly?
It's for the tax map updates for site plan, to record site plans, lot line adjustments, subdivisions,
Motion for, where'd you say, 3,100?
3,100.
And what's that being, what budget is that coming out of?
That's out of the assessing budget.
And that's just because it wasn't expended yet this year.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
Back to your packet, there are several invoices in here from, and quotes from Block 5. So 3 of them are projects that we would like to complete in this next year. So there's a firewall upgrade, and there's also an upgrade for the firewall at the town office, so that would increase redundancy. So there was a period where the firewall at the fire department failed on a Saturday over the summer. And so what that ended up doing was it took their entire network down for 3 days. So by putting in a second firewall, it would increase that redundancy so that they'd have a failover, so that there would be no downtime. Because of that event, those were billable hours, but Block 5 is willing to eat the cost of the billable hours if we move forward with this project cost, so they don't wash out. We want to add another firewall here for that same purpose for the town office, and then also adding a battery backup. So those are the first 3 quotes that are in here. The last 2 are to get new workstations for the corporal, and so for Corporal Spitaleri, there's 1 computer, and then there's another computer in here for the second corporal that is anticipated to be promoted later this spring. So the
Those are new equipment based on growth of the department and promotions.
They don't have computers now. So at this point, we would be requesting $6,007.04 to cover and move forward with these projects here. I will still be requesting further expenditure of these funds from this account for more replacement systems. So we still have, there's a couple of workstations based on the 5-year schedule for town office and for fire.
And that account has plenty of money in it. It had 78, and then we just allocated, what, 9?
There's 78 in there now. There's another 9 that you approved for the police department tonight, minus the 6, so it would take you down to about 60. Over the next 5 years, I reviewed that with Jason today, Jason for Block 5, and so we're still on track to be able to meet the needs of replacing everything on that 5-year schedule. The big request will be in '25 when we do some server upgrades. So next year, we'll be looking to expend quite a bit of that money, so the replenishment of this fund at this year's town meeting will be important.
Questions or discussion on those Block 5 quotes?
Seems legit.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Andy has made a seems legit motion for
We're voting on scenes?
$6,007.04. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
You don't like firewalls?
Well, firewalls are just fine.
Bob Redlinski resigned from the Energy and Efficiency Committee. I believe he moved, and so that's why he is no longer eligible to serve on that committee. Rick LeBrecq and the rest of the committee members would like to request that Kristen Aldred be moved from an alternate member to a full member, and then they would like to post for an alternate member through the regular statement of interest appointment process.
Okay. And the way we've handled these before, because we already voted on and approved her as an alternate, we've left that to the discretion of the committees to bump alternates up to full members.
No?
Yes, that is how we have handled it on other boards.
Last week, they were different, didn't you do something different this week?
No,
No.
that was to appoint
that wasn't
alternates for the first time. These are existing alternates who are being granted full membership by their committee that we already approved them to be on.
And you did do that with Becky in conservation when you moved her from all
Correct.
to markets.
Correct.
So we,
Do we-
Serious outburst.
Outburst from the crowd.
so just so I'm clear, we don't have discretion then on that?
So the way we've handled it since we changed the rules is when we first appoint somebody to a committee to the first time, either as a full member or an alternate, we go through the whole process.
Right.
Once they are a serving alternate that's already been blessed by our board or a prior board, we've left it to the discretion of that board to move somebody from alternate to full member without, and basically we have just rubber stamped that because we have already approved that person, if that makes sense. That person is already a serving member, so we have left it up. I mean, we could
Yeah.
step in if we really felt that we needed to put the committee in a different direction. But up till now, under the new guidelines we've been using, we have let those all go through because they've all made sense for the committees.
And just for clarity,
Yeah.
these boards, the non-elected boards
Are
are
advisory.
generally advisory to the select board. right?
Correct.
So like, we always do have that discretion.
Correct.
If it's not,
They're not
if the
elected
advice and
officials.
guidance that we're not receiving is what we're looking for, then we have that discretion at all
Absolutely.
times.
Absolutely. Yep. Does anybody have a problem with what that committee would like to do for this appointment?
Seems legit.
Wow.
Agreed. That sounds like a
Motion.
motion.
Yeah, and I'm,
A motion
again,
and a second.
and I'm fine with that, with the substance of it. Again, I just process, I wanna make sure I understand. So, the process is that if you're elevating someone, we're just rubber stamping in effect?
I mean, maybe rubber stamping is not the right word. I think the reason we changed the rules is we wanted the select board to have a little bit more directional control for some of the advisory boards. So if the committee had made a decision for an alternate to move up to full member that we felt was not in the best interest of the committee, we could of course overrule that vote. I think my assumption is because we already approved these people as alternates, that the board was already thinking that these people were helping the committee move in the right direction. So I think it's sort of assumed that because we've already voted and approved those people as alternates, that we feel that we're comfortable with them moving up to, I mean, when you pick an alternate, that's what you're saying, that you would be comfortable with them moving up to a full position. So in general, my assumption is most of these will go through the board smoothly without us making any changes, unless something had occurred that to John's point, if we felt that something had changed on the committee or that member was not effective, we might make a different choice.
Is that written as part of policy
I
somewhere?
think it's the purview of the board. I don't think we have an official policy about an advisory subcommittee alternate going to a full member. That's like in the weeds, right?
Technically, at any given meeting, an alternate could be moved to a full member
And vote.
and vote.
Right.
So
Right.
We don't get involved in that.
Right,
the purpose of vetting the alternate is so that in the future they become a full member,
right.
so.
It's kind of assumed that
Right.
the board's gonna be in support.
Well, right, I only say that because, well, I can just foresee this, scenario where then, something, we take that back and where we've, established that precedent. So it just gives me cause for concern unless there's some process in place.
Well, we did it 6 weeks ago when we moved Becky from
Yep.
alternate to full member of the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission, and
Yeah.
then she became the chairperson.
Right.
So
Yeah, no,
I mean, we could certainly amend, I mean, we've been working on that, committee appointment language. We could amend it if you felt strongly, but I think to John's point, those are non-elected appointed committees that serve, only with our authorization.
right,
And so it really is up to us how we populate those committees over time. And we can change the rules,
And
or a
every
future
elected-
board could change the rules.
Right, every elected board can run their
Committees,
advisory
how they see
committees
fit.
different.
Right,
well, yeah, clearly. Yeah,
Yep.
I know we're talking about the advisory committees.
Yep.
I just, okay. I don't have a problem with what we're doing here,
Yep.
and I think.
No, I think
what we
procedurally,
did-
you're just trying to
Yeah.
run it through in your head.
Yeah.
I get where your brain's going.
Yeah. and I think what I was trying to say is it's not necessarily a precedent, but to Andy's point, we've already appointed these people. And so in general, I think it's relatively smooth sailing when they get moved up to full member.
As it should be.
Right.
I agree with that.
Exactly.
I'm just concerned then, when, if or when the contrary would occur.
Which it could, I mean, who knows? Then whoever's on the board at that time would have to deal with that situation.
And technically, every March, there's a
new
new
board.
board. And
Yep.
so technically, every new board
Yep.
can set its own policies.
Correct.
Because we cannot tell the next board
How to
in
do their
April
subcommittees,
how to operate.
correct.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in
Yeah, you
favor?
made a motion with the sounds legit.
Yes, you did. We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And then we will post on our standard process for a new alternate member.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Daphne has requested Jillian Benedict's be appointed as an inspector of election from today just through August 1st of this year.
Moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. How many inspectors of elections do we have? We have quite a few, right?
We do have a lot, I don't know how many.
She felt that we needed an additional one.
I think each party's allowed to put forward 5 each, I believe, but I don't know that they always utilize.
Can we just make sure that that is, because I do know that there's a person who has put their name forward and been told no. So of course, gonna sign this and support it, made the motion, but I just wanna make sure that it's, we're approaching it with equity.
Anything else you have for us? You're gonna keep us busy tonight.
I have nothing further for you.
Okay, and no non-public tonight? No?
No.
Okay. We will move on to committee updates and other board business, and we will start with Andy.
I take that back.
Oh, she took it
Unless
back.
you wanna talk about anything that was in the mail folder, then I don't have non-public.
Did anybody want to talk about anything in the mail folder?
Do you wanna read it?
Were you hinting that there is something we
guess-
should be
I
talking
guess we'll
about
do
in
a
the mail?
short non-public then.
Okay, sounds good. Andy, regular committee updates or board business?
Conservation will meet tomorrow. On the agenda will be some Fuller property momentum. Looks like we have some information from SELT, so
Nice.
the progression of that will be on the agenda tomorrow.
Great.
It's the letter of agreement that you guys had seen, or Jeremy Luigi was here to discuss, and then it's on the select board agenda for next week.
Perfect.
Eco and Dev met last week for the first time in quite a while. Good meeting, looking at building out the 2024 priorities. As I mentioned, we talked about the dam. Andy asked the question as a sidebar, what's the economic implications? One of the economic implications is the potential for a reduction in our waterway and could impact recreational opportunities, which obviously impacts economic development. There are a couple of projects that are being looked at in town along the 125 corridor, which is obviously a big part of what we've been trying to focus on. And then finally, we are going to be hosting our 3rd quarterly business breakfast at the Rec on Wednesday the 21st at 7:30 in the morning. And we chose not to have a speaker this time. We're going to do a round table with business owners. So would encourage everyone to join us. Wednesday the 21st, 7:30 a.m. at the Rec.
21st of what?
Of February.
February.
Sorry.
Can we put that up on the town
Fair.
Facebook page?
Fair question.
Get the word
I would have been there
circulated?
January.
Well, that's what dawned in my head, and I'm like, we really shouldn't have breakfast the day after elections?
Or 2 days,
But
2 days before.
that would have been the 24th.
Yeah.
Julian just ordered the postcards today, so I think I'll wait until that.
Oh, okay,
before
sure.
we post it on
Perfect.
Facebook.
Okay.
We can just put-
Other updates for us? Okay, Paul?
Yeah, planning board and this, the LaRoches are here, because 62, 65, Route 125 was at issue, and the problem is that there was a plan that would be for contractor lay down only. There was way more activity going on at that site, big rocks, processing rocks, lots of noise as a result, pollution in terms of silt in the air from this, and basically non-compliant with the plan that had been approved for that property. We, as a planning board, we had a discussion with the property owner, who had promised us back in November that he would be moving off the property and he just needed to complete the work in order for him to get out. So we sort of gave him tacit okay at that time, and then it never stopped, and instead what came before us was an amendment to allow this activity to proceed. The planning board denied that application for an amendment and also voted unanimously that there be a cease and desist for that activity that was occurring. And this was after testimony from many citizens in terms of what was going on. And not only cease and desist, but to remove the materials and the processing that's going on there, that's presently on there as well. So that's what the planning board has recommended for the select board to do. I would highly encourage that to happen. I understand there may need to be some coordination ultimately, but I think we can, vote that moves forward. I would
So to
definitely do
clarify, November, they told you it would stop, and there's been definite evidence that not only did it not stop, but it has persisted from November until now.
Yeah, I mean, in November, we were told that he would need to continue just to move out, and that's what we were told. Well, that didn't happen. Instead, it got worse over that time frame, and then they went in, it was like a basic bait and switch, came in and said, now, we want approval with an amended plan to do this. We're like, well, no. And moreover, this was completely non-compliant with what you were supposed to have been doing all along. So,
And I'm assuming we have the appropriate documentation that activity persisted.
yes. I mean, I think they didn't deny it.
That makes it easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the fact that they were asking for a permit to continue doing it kind of implies that they
Right.
weren't even trying to do that. Okay.
In fact, their agent who was there didn't even realize the history of it, and that's what had happened.
Okay.
I can get with Glenn and Jillian tomorrow and draft the language. It looks like a cease and desist. The typical form is just signed by one board member, and then it'll be given to the police officer to hand deliver.
Okay.
So as long as if you want to move forward in that direction, I would just need you to authorize one person to come back and sign that. So that it's not
I'm happy to
hanging out
do
till
so,
next week.
and I'm happy to, fine tune the language on it as well, since I feel like this was my thing.
Sure. So does someone want to make a motion for us to agree to order a cease and desist letter and to have Paul be the signing agent?
Also move.
Give a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you, Paul, for handling that. So that will likely be able to be done over the next few days. Okay, perfect. And thank you for bringing that issue forward. And
May I ask a
hopefully-
question?
Sure.
Hello?
Sure.
How long is this person gonna have to get the stockpile out of that location?
Was that discussed?
Yeah, it was.
I do not know if anyone, Paul, did you ridden by today?
Uh,
Does anybody, the pile?
It's still there, but it's covered with snow and such.
Phenomenal.
Did we give a time frame? I thought,
No, there was discussion, but just for clarification, that this is the leaseor that we're talking about. The property owner is the one who approached us about expanding the hours and the operation. So there's two separate situations going on. You had made mention the owner had the stockpile. That is, I can't remember his name, but, so.
Wilder?
There's an
Mr.
owner
Wilder,
and then a
he's
separate
the
operator.
leaseor, and he's the one that's doing the, Janice is the owner of the
Yeah.
property, and he's also looking to expand those hours, but in conjunction with that, he's got Mr. Weiler involved with the expanding the hours and the type of operation that's going on. So on the cease and desist, the gentleman that's leasing it, Mr. Wilder's got to be notified and given a period of time. Initially, he said it would take him about 30 days to get rid of everything. That's what he initially said.
Yeah.
Then they came in with a revised, Mr. Janice came in with a revised operation, and that's what happened the other night. 35 residents were there.
Would
But
we
I think
clarify
30
on the
I think
cease and
30
desist?
days.
Would we put that on the cease and desist, or
Yeah, for
I would
30
think-
days, I think that would be reasonable.
we can check?
I mean, to cease and desist any activity and 30 days for removal.
So we can double check.
It might
on
be a
that.
good idea to have both names on there.
Lessee and
That
owner.
would motivate the owner of the property to come in, at least discuss the whole issue.
We're only gonna serve the notice to the property owner, and then it would be up to him to
With
forward
what's-
it to the tenant.
with-
right,
with
because
what's
the-
He's
active.
responsible.
The arrangement he has with his tenant would be a
That's
civil agreement,
Right, that makes sense.
and if his tenant is unhappy, that's up to them to sue
Right.
each other.
Right,
He can figure out.
right.
But a true answer to your question, this could go on until a court makes a ruling.
If we have to get the courts involved, it may take a while.
We hope not.
Hopefully, we won't.
Back on all the planning board meetings, it will be on record as to what this gentleman said the original conditions of the property were gonna be. We're gonna be laying storage, and that there would only be trucks, we'd only hear them in the morning, and then leave, and then we may come back at night. Well, since then, he has leased the land out to this other gentleman who was stockpiling all this stuff on the property. And when I went to town council back in November, they had already said that he was being non-compliant. And he continued on to just keep on bringing trucks in there, trucks operating, equipment operating all hours, 7 days a week. It's not just us, it's people over in Diane McCain Drive that have been dealing with this, whose houses are rattling all the time, the noise and such. So there was quite a few people at this meeting
Sure.
last week.
Yep, we're gonna try to get that to stop.
You know, he just has no regard for,
Well, that's when he gave us
Rules
the
and
bait and switch.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why we have to take
Yeah.
legal action of doing a cease and desist letter. So that's what we'll do next, and then we'll take whatever steps we have to after that.
I appreciate it. It's been going on for too long. He's basically blindsided.
Thank you.
the town.
Thank you. Other board items that you have for us?
That's fine.
No? Okay. We had a school board meeting last night, and there was a good discussion about potentially bringing solar to the school. There would be a fairly large array put on the roof of the school, and it's kind of a really lucky time for the school to be doing this, because in the past year or so, the feds changed the guidelines so that when you put in a new solar project, you get a direct cash payback of 30% of the project price from the feds. And so the school board made a unanimous vote to move forward with to go to a warrant for the town to make a bond for the cost of solar. And there was a good discussion about, some of the details of how to do that and how to do the bond. But overall, a very positive feeling. And because of that 30% rebate and because of the cost savings on energy, it looks like it will probably only be in the range of $20,000 a year or so cost to the town for about 10 years. And then after that point, it's all cost savings. So there were some good questions from the public, but unanimous vote by the school board to generate a warrant to go to the town to try to move forward with solar at the school. So that's exciting, especially given how well our town array has gone. And this would be different in that the school would actually own the array as opposed to the way that we went into a leasing agreement with ours, because you have to own the array to get the 30% tax credit. So kind of exciting step forward for the school. So stay tuned for more information on that. And I think that was all that I had. So we have a brief non-public?
Yes.
Yes, under
For
which?
legal.
Legal, okay.
Motion.
Second.
We'll take a roll call to go into legal non-public. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you, everyone.
I just wanted to know so we could text when we get home.
So I was like, I can't read your mind.